Hey guys, welcome to my video. In this video I am showing off my little black ice race truck that I built a few years ago and played with and had a lot of fun with. And so the story begins a few years ago. I went up to Georgetown Lake in Georgetown, Colorado to participate in an ice race up there. There's a Jeep club up there, our gang Jeep club, that puts on races every year, and it's a lot of fun. You get to slide your truck around or Jeep around on the ice and have a good time. So I took my Ford Explorer up, and it's not really set up for ice racing, of course, and had a lot of fun, but decided that I'd want to make something that's a little more competitive. So I made the decision to build a V8 Ranger. I had built a few Rangers and Ford Explorers over the years, so I'm real familiar with that platform and know that the V8 drivetrain out of a Ford Explorer will bolt into a Ford Ranger. And so thinking about this project, finding the lightest Ford Ranger that I could use, and so I settled on a regular cab short bed 4-wheel drive Ranger as the starting point. From 1998 on, Ford Rangers had rack and pinion steering and independent front suspension, so that seemed like the right candidate. So off to Craigslist I went. In Colorado, in order to make this vehicle street legal and pass emissions, the donor engine needs to come from a newer vehicle than the original vehicle. So a 98, 99, 2000 Ranger is the perfect candidate, and the donor vehicle needs to be at least 1 year newer. And they made those V8 Explorers and Mountaineers all the way through 2001. So the first vehicle I came across was a 2001 Mercury Mountaineer, and had 120,000 miles on it, was hit in the side, so the drivetrain was okay, the frame was undamaged, and it drove actually pretty well with the door mostly not connected to the hinges. So I purchased it for $1,100 and brought it home. The next vehicle I found that would work for the project was a 98 Ford Ranger with a 3.0 V6 and 5-speed with a blown engine. It was a little rough around the edges, but not too bad, and $700 brought it home. So I started digging into the Ranger to pull it apart and look it over and get ready for the engine swap. But the problem showed itself pretty quickly. This vehicle was from Massachusetts, and when I looked underneath the cab and underneath the front suspension area and frame, there wasn't any rust. But once I pulled the bed off, I found lots of rust, and so the rear subframe, or the rear frame area, was so badly rusted that I decided to not use this vehicle. So pulled a bunch of parts off of it to sell on Craigslist to recoup a little bit of money, and called up a local junk collector to take it away. So I continued on my search for another Ranger, and none came up. Searched Craigslist and every avenue I couldn't find one. And the ice racing season was getting close, and so I decided to kind of take a little different approach for a year, and I bought a Ford Explorer Sport. So the year went by pretty quickly. Had a good time with the Explorer Sport out on the ice. It was amazing how that short wheelbase worked. It would spin around and go through the turns really well, but it was pretty gutless. It had a 4-liter overhead valve and a 5-speed, but it never really was competitive, but I had a good time. And so the search continues for a Ranger. So the springtime comes, and I eventually find a Mazda B3000 pickup, pretty much exactly like the Ranger, 3-liter, 5-speed with a blown engine. Threw down $1,000 for this truck. It has like 50,000 miles on it. It's amazing. I'm guessing they never changed the oil, and eventually the engine locked up solid. But the body was in really good shape, no rust at all, and so bought it and brought it home. In this shot, you can see the engine from the Mountaineer out of the Mountaineer, waiting to go in. I won't go into the whole V8 swap part of this project. It's pretty boring. Doing a lot of different types of racing over the years, one thing I learned is that it's really important to have a good seat to keep your butt planted so you can apply the brakes and steering accurately and not feel like you're sliding out the other door. So I installed some cheap bucket seats from Summit Racing, and the install was pretty straightforward, and they worked out pretty well. Next on the list is to lower the suspension. My idea is to get a lower center of gravity. Hopefully the truck will handle better and work better on the ice. The front is pretty straightforward. It's equipped with torsion bars, so there's adjusters on those. You can lower it by unwinding those adjusters. In the rear, there's a little trick that I learned a long time ago where the rear shackle mounts can be unbolted and flipped upside down, and you can get quite a bit of lowering from that. And I think it ended up being about 4 inches lower in the rear and about 2 inches lower in the front. So that worked out pretty well. This next modification is sort of cosmetic. What you're seeing here is the inner wheel well in the bed. So you basically cut that wheel well, put a jack in there, push it out about 1.5 inches, and then put some plates to keep it there, and it gives you a little bit more clearance in the rear for wider tires. And here's the finished product. You can see that there's some nice wheels on there. Those are from Jegs, 15 by 10 inch wheels made for a Mustang, and Michelin X Ices. I bought the best tire I could for the bare tire class. And there I was, ready for the first ice race season of the little black truck. And Mother Nature didn't cooperate, and the lake didn't freeze, and so the whole season was canceled. Even though the Georgetown Lake didn't freeze, there's plenty of other opportunities to take the little truck out and have a good time. Another really good time I had with the truck was entering an event called the Roaring Fork Snow Trials. Basically, it was an autocross on snow. There was a group of guys who got together and put this event on, mostly with WRXs and that type of vehicle, and spent a lot of time and effort to put together a really neat course, and I entered the truck to see how she would do. So I entered the event, didn't know how I would do, but knew I would have a good time. And so it was pretty evident right away that the truck might be a little better suited for this type of a course. it started to break up pretty quickly, so a lot of holes and ridges and ruts and things were forming, and so a really low WRX STI is not going to do too well when you're hitting these big ledges. But the little truck took it in stride, and I ended up winning. It was very interesting because the guys who put it on weren't real happy with the fact that I showed up with an old beater truck and beat them. And so, but had a really good time, and would do it again. Spring came, and I decided that I needed to compete and get the little black truck out and see how it would do in a rallycross. So I entered a rallycross and had a great time. Got up on two wheels, had the kids in there as co-drivers, and the truck, because it's so modified, it fits into the modified class with all the high horsepower rally cars and whatnot. And so I wasn't very competitive, but man, I sure did have a good time. So after more than a year of waiting, I finally get the little black truck up on the ice. It was really a good feeling to get up there in the cold. And so off to the races. In this shot, you can see the competition stud tires that I put together. They're basically little tiny tractor tires with studs inserted into them. So a quick swap of tires, and it's a whole nother level of grip from the bare tires. competed for the whole season and got better and better in each event, and eventually did win one of the events in my class. I was really happy with that and had a great time. Well, that brings this video to an end. To sum it all up, this little project has been a lot of fun. From rallycross to snow trials events to ice racing, it's been a successful little project, and you never know when it may show up again somewhere else. Thanks for watching.